What's up everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mike Versbro, and for today's video I want to talk about the update to Adobe Photoshop 2021 and one of the new features it has, which is sky replacement. Now I'm happy they finally decided to do this, considering they had competitors that put out sky replacement I think a year ago, like LUMINAR, and their program is a fraction of the cost of Adobe Photoshop. You know, for being an industry leader with editing software, I would expect Photoshop to come out with some type of technology like this first, but unfortunately they're a little behind. But I do like their sky replacement a little bit better than Luminar, and are some things that you have to keep in mind and be realistic about, just like you have to be with Luminar. There are certain scenarios in which the photo is going to work great and some that are not. So we're going to go over a few pictures that I picked out to kind of test this out and see how well it does. And just like Luminar, your best bet is going to be when you have a nice clear sky, typically at twilight, whether it's dusk or dawn. It's going to be easier to blend a different sky with those types of photos. So I'll show you guys right here with some examples. I shot this at ancient Bristol Cone Pine Forest. Now this was the foreground shot that I took for my star trail. So after I took this shot, I waited till it got a little bit darker, and then I started my star trails. But we're going to use this foreground shot and blend, different skies. We could do a sunrise or a sunset, and we could also do a Milky Way pretty easily because this was taken around twilight. I did pull out a lot of the blue that was in the sky, and I want to see how well that's going to help or hurt the sky replacement with this photo. So let's get into it. Go to Edit, Sky Replacement. And we're going to get a little box right here that pops up, and let me just go through this really quickly. Right now it's trying to find the sky and change it out with this sunset, and there it goes. Now before I do any adjustments to this, I just want to go through this dialog box and all the buttons we have here. This first one in the top left will allow you to adjust the position of the sky. Next we have a little paintbrush, and we could zoom in here. If it didn't do a great job finding the edge, we could paint away some of the sky that's in our foreground. The hand will move around the whole image, so if you're zoomed in, let me zoom in here, I can move around to a specific area. Magnifying tool to zoom in. Next we have shift edge, fade edge, sky adjustments, brightness and temperature, and then the scale of the image. So if you decide to shift the image and it doesn't reach the sides, we could adjust the scale to make it a little larger. You could also flip it. And then down here we have the foreground adjustment, so if we want to lighten it, do a color adjustment, we could change it from screen to multiply. Typically I use multiply, so let me click that now. And then how you want to output your new image, and then obviously preview on and off. So let's adjust this a little bit. I'm going to change my fade edge. Just want to see what that does. Okay, so I'm going to keep it on this side. Next I want to adjust the shift edge. Alright, let's go negative. And this is going to fix some of the areas of the tree that had some of the sky bleeding into it. But it did a pretty good job right out of the gate. I didn't have to adjust too much. And like I said, we could always take this brush tool and fine tune it if need be. So I'm going to leave it like that and start playing around with a couple different skies. Now because this was taken during twilight, you don't really want to use a blue sky, but I'm pretty sure we could get away with it. Again, it might look weird because it changed the light mode to screen. Put that back on multiply. Come on. There we go. Sorry, it's running a little slow because I'm screen recording. But yeah, multiply, fix that right up. And then we can do some lighting adjustments on the foreground to help blend that a little bit better. But yeah, it seemed to do a decent job. And let's try a Milky Way shot. Let me get one that looks pretty good. Now these Milky Way shots are ones that I brought in. You can bring in your own photos by clicking down here and find where your folder of images are that you want to use for the sky replacement, and then just start bringing them in. So let me just zoom out really quick. So let's say I want to reposition this sky a little bit over here. Let me increase the scale. Now I'm just going to go really extreme with these sliders so you can see what they're doing. So let's go all the way negative so you can see how it brought back some of the original sky. And if we go all the way this way, it goes way too far into our foreground. So let's put it on 0. Let's do fade edge all the way to 0, and then all the way at 100. So you see down here it has a nice little, it fades it out. So this gets rid of the fade, and this adds more. So you want to keep that probably around 50, but you're gonna obviously adjust this depending on the sky that you're using. We can brighten up our sky and also change the temperature to help blend it. But that did a really good job really quickly versus other methods that I would use to blend this. And like I said, you have some stars that are bleeding into here, and we could simply fix that by adjusting our shift edge. And we could also fine tune it by grabbing this brush and just painting them away. But it's doing a pretty good job so far, and that's with me having a nice clear sky that I muted out a lot of the blue that was in the sky. So let's try one that has a little bit more blue in it. So here's another shot from ancient bristlecone pine forest, again of the same tree at a different angle, and this is again taken at twilight. So go to edit, sky replacement. And it's going to start off with the last image that I just used. Let's try a different Milky Way shot here. Let's go with this guy. Alright, so there's my Milky Way shot, and you can see there's a little bit of a blue fade right here. So again, this is where we're going to adjust the fade edge and get rid of that. Did a pretty good job. I'm also going to bring this down a little bit. We could also make our sky a little on the bluer side if need be. Let me zoom in here. It's doing a pretty good job. It gets a little tricky right here at the edge of the tree, but again, that's pretty easy to fix. Actually, let me just shift the edge down a little bit more. Not too bad. And I can just fix this by painting it in, but the majority of the tree looks pretty good. You just have to fine tune around the edges a little bit. Let's change this to screen. I just want to see what happens. Yeah, I think multiply seems to be the best way to go for the majority of these shots. Alright, let's try a different sunset picture. This looks pretty cool. Let me change this brush off. Okay. So change that out, no problem, with the blue sky. Like I said, it was nice and clear. It's going to make life a little easier. Let's go with some blue sky and clouds. The foreground's a little dark. We could always brighten that up. Now, it doesn't seem like I could change it too drastically in here. So you definitely want to adjust your exposure properly, like in Lightroom or in Photoshop, before bringing it into sky replacement. But it's doing a pretty good job so far. We're gonna keep on going on to some more challenging scenarios. Alright, so here's a nice blue sky again, but this is during the day. Let's go to edit, sky replacement. Now it shouldn't have any issue adding clouds. Yeah, it does a really good job at doing that. Now because this is a daytime photo, you really don't want to use a sunset or a Milky Way shot on this. It might do an okay job blending it, but it just won't look natural because you have a harsh light from the sun. So watch, let's do a sunset. The lighting's wrong. I mean, it blended it pretty well, but it just doesn't look natural because you have this, you have the sun hitting this side, but then you also have the sunset behind it, so it just doesn't make sense. So you really want to use this properly. If this was off to the side more, maybe it could look a little more realistic, but yeah, it doesn't look too realistic. Let's do a nice shot. Alright, so there you see you have a lot of the blue. We get rid of that by shifting the edge. Or fade edge, I should say. It does a decent job finding and getting rid of the blue edge, but again, unrealistic. So if you want the most flexibility, definitely take the images at twilight. A lot of times I'm using a star tracker, so I take my foregrounds typically during astronomical twilight, and then I'll use a star tracker. So this is going to come in real handy for that. Now if you are traveling and it's during the day and you have an empty sky, it's just blue like this one was, and you want to spice things up a little bit and get some clouds in there, this will be good for that as well. But again, this was a nice clean blue sky, so very easy to replace that sky. Let's see what else we got here for examples. Let me cancel that. Alright, so here's a shot that I took pretty recently. This is up in Vermont, and I want to do a Milky Way shot here. And I did a long exposure so I could illuminate the foreground, but you can see the stars are trailing. This is all light pollution that's bouncing off these clouds. But yeah, the clouds rolled in and I couldn't get the Milky Way. But I want to see how well it will get rid of this sky with all these clouds in it. So let's go to edit, sky replacement. And we want to change this out with a Milky Way shot. Change that to multiply. Actually, it doesn't look half bad, but let's go to a Milky Way picture. Alright, I'm gonna grab this one right here. Obviously, I have to move this down. Okay, so you can see some of the clouds are still faded in here. Let me adjust this fade edge to get rid of them. And I just want to play around with the shift edge really quick. Let me zoom in. So I'm just playing around with shift edge, see what looks best, and it's doing a really good job considering this was full of clouds. That was an area with Luminar that I kind of struggled with. If the sky had a bunch of clouds in it, it really had a hard time blending a different sky in there. And Photoshop, so far, this looks pretty good. Obviously, I would have to fix some areas in this, but it's not a lot. So grab my brush. Like, I would just have to fix some of these mountains that have the stars that are bleeding into it. But overall, this did a pretty good job. I'm really impressed so far. This is definitely going to come in handy when I have to do my blended shots. But yeah, that looked really good considering it had all the clouds in here. And then I could just change this to plus and get rid of the clouds that are in the sky right here if I want to. Awesome. I'm pretty impressed so far. So let's cancel and go to the next photo. Another nice easy sky for this. I'm going to do this really quickly since we know that it can handle these blue skies really well. Again, we have that blue halo, easy to get rid of in Photoshop by shifting the fade edge down. Yep, that was nice, quick and easy. If I was to set this up a little differently, I would just warm this area right here so to get rid of some of that blue. It'll definitely help if you pull out some of the blue in Lightroom first before bringing it into Photoshop, but this is still doing a really good job. Let's go again to something a little more difficult. Let's try a city. The sky is mostly clear, but we do have a bunch of buildings, so I want to kind of challenge it with that. And we do have a transition of light right here with these clouds that are lit up by the sun. And there's a little bit of haze too, so let's give this a whirl. Edit, sky replacement. Now I wouldn't use a Milky Way shot on this, but you know, that doesn't look half bad, surprisingly. It faded that pretty nicely. But let's go to, let's try some clouds. This should be pretty easy. Yeah, and you got a little bit of the color still. Zoom in here. That looks pretty good. I'm at 300%. Let me zoom out a little bit. I did a good job with the buildings. Let's do something that would be more natural. Alright, so here's the before, here's the after. Yeah, did an awesome job. Cancel, let's go to, this is gonna be a little more challenging. You can see all the haze here on this mountain, so it's very faded. So I think now we're gonna start pushing it a little bit. Yeah, it's struggling to get good definition with the mountain range right here. Let me zoom in. Alright, it's not terrible. If you keep it a blue sky with clouds, you can make it look more realistic. Because we do have the haze, it's going to be a little bit challenging for it to detect this edge right here. So obviously, like if you're going to change the sky out on certain images, you can't go crazy and put like a beautiful sunset on something like this. You have to keep it within the realm of possibility. Switching over to another cloudy day now. Alright, let's change this edge a little bit. Did an okay job. Let's try a different one. Alright, struggling a little bit. But it's not too bad, and again, we have this paintbrush that we could fix it if need be. Let me put this on negative. Paint some of this back. I'm just doing this really quickly, but yeah, it's not doing a terrible job. Compared to LUMINAR, I think this does a lot better when you have a cloudier sky. So yeah, it's doing a relatively good job. Let's try a little more challenging of a blend. Now this is, again, kind of out of the realm of possibility with this type of daytime shot, and then we have this really vibrant sunset or sunrise, whatever it is. I guess we could always brighten this up and then fade the edge and kind of blend it. Something like that. It's not terrible, but you definitely have to pick and choose your images properly. We're definitely pushing it here by using this type of sunrise or sunset with this type of foreground when we still have this harsh lighting from the sun. If I waited till dusk and had nice even light, it would be a lot easier to blend you know, a sky like this. So let me hit cancel. And here's a shot from Horseshoe Bend with some clouds in the sky, mostly empty right here. We'll see how that does, and we have a decent amount of haze in the back. Let's try this sunrise sunset shot. It's actually not too bad. Let's try a different one. Let's see. So this blue skies they provided, spectacular they provided, and sunsets they provided. I made my own Milky Way folder, and then I'm going to start including my own sunrise sunset shots, blue skies and clouds and some storm clouds. So over time I'm going to start creating my own library of skies to replace it with. It's not doing too bad of a job. You do see some of the clouds from the original image underneath it. Again, I just have to play around with the fade edge to get rid of those. Let's try doing a night shot just for fun. Alright, it definitely doesn't look natural. Again, I would have to take this photo at a different time of day for it to really work with a night shot. And I think that's the key takeaway with sky replacement. you want to make sure that you're taking the photo at the proper time of day. That's going to benefit whatever type of sky you're trying to replace it with. So overall, I really like the Photoshop sky replacement compared to the Luminars. Luminars does an okay job, but it really struggles when there's clouds in the sky, and it does have that relight scene button, which is pretty cool, but you know, you really don't need that if you're blending a sky with the proper foreground. So for example, if it's a daytime picture and you have a blue sky and you really want to spruce it up, make sure you're blending it with another blue sky with clouds, and it's going to blend no problem and look the most natural. You know, if you try and use a sunset picture with a daytime photo, it's just not going to look natural depending on the lighting. So you really have to be careful there, regardless of which software you use, whether it's Luminar or Photoshop. If you want to blend in a Milky Way sky or a sunset or sunrise sky, you definitely want to take your foreground during twilight and the lighting's nice and flat. It's going to blend so much easier and look so much more natural. So it's really cool that Photoshop finally did something like this. Definitely check it out and experiment and have fun with it. I hope this helps you guys out. Take care. Bye bye.